So this is session 1 of 2 of Guards of Abashan, which is a fantasy city guard setting that I have run an extended campaign in. I've run it at conventions, these scenarios. We're playing tonight with a hack of fate called Action Cards, which is a game that we play here at home. And I was able to figure out how to do card decks in Roll20. And these people were nice enough to go along with that. And we're going to give that a try tonight. I will occasionally try and screen share when the cards are up so people can see, if you're watching this video, what's going on here. So I want to go through the cats real quick about what we're actually doing. And then I want to talk about some structural things. So this is a city guards game. You are in the bad part of a fantasy city. This is an area that has collapsed and has been assigned to kind of the dregs in some ways. So you've gotten assigned to not the greatest part of town. The aim of the game is that I will put some problems in front of you, essentially things that are on your beat. You'll decide what you want to look into. You'll decide how you want to handle that, how you want to solve them. This is a lighter fantasy game. We can decide how much we want to lean into that. It's not straight up comedic because I am going to put situations in front of you that have to be dealt with. But we do play with the fantasy tropes here a little bit. And of course, we are playing essentially the officers of the law. And you can decide how you want to picture that within a fantasy setting. This is part of the Gauntlet Hangouts, which means that we have some safety tools that we use. Are all of you familiar with the X card? Just for anybody watching at home, we are using the X card, which is a simple, essentially alert system safety tool. I use it because it's one of the easiest and most basic, and given the short period of time that we have to play in, I think it's the one we go with. Essentially, for anyone playing, if we hit material that they find objectionable, that bothers them, that they have a phobia about, or they don't care for the tone, they can X card that. We will edit past it and move on. I may ask you for some clarification to get the framing of that, but we'll go past that. And we've used it a lot. It's a good standard safety tool. We would be playing for about 2.5 hours. We'll take a break at the midpoint. We'll take a 5-minute break then. If you need me to call that break early, say so, but we'll try and get that there. I will try and do Roses and Thorns at the end of the second session because these two sessions actually feel more like a 4 or 5 hour game. I hold them off till the end of the second session. Lastly, for sort of administrative things, I am from Indiana, and I have a horrible Hoosier accent. I did not realize that until I went to other parts of the country. And sometimes I talk really fast. If at any point I've been talking and you're like, I do not understand what he just said, please feel free to stop and say, Lowell, can you repeat that? I will not be offended. I know that I can say words very strangely, like I say settler when I mean settler, for example. So that's also, just give me a heads up on that. Now, we are in this ancient city of Abashan. It's a layered city. The city has been built up upon itself over generations. It's massive. It's spread out. It has all these neighborhoods and districts. We're going to, once we get started, we're going to have a briefing from essentially your sergeant, who's going to tell you what to do, and we'll get rolling on that. Now, we've got 6 archetypes here for you to choose from. And I'm going to go from, let's see, I'll go right to left. Steve, which one do you want to play?
I would like to play the wizard.
Okay, so the wizard is yours.
The elder elven wizard.
Okay, Keith, what would you like to play?
I guess I will take the precision duelist.
Okay. Ellen, what would you like to play?
I would like to play the Servant of the Inky God.
Okay. Awesome. It's a good character. And we'll get the other person's pick when they come back, and we'll get that figured out. So you'll notice that we've got both the character sheets there on the Google Doc, and then we've got the card decks. I want to talk about how this is going to work. If you can look at the Roll20, and you'll see the cards there and see the decks. Normally what I'll do is I will call for a particular kind of pull. You'll mouse over your deck, and you'll click the card that comes up just a little, and that will draw a card for you. Once it's up and visible, you can click on the card face to pull it up so you can see all the details on it. Most of the standard cards will show you results in one of 4 areas: mental, physical, combat, and social. And when I have you make the pull, I'll tell you what you're pulling on. And the basic results are catastrophic, bad, just missed, okay, great, and then amazing. There are also a variety of special cards in your deck. When they pop up, we'll talk about those. You have some unique cards that are tuned just to you in each of these decks there. So that will happen. Now, let us say that you drew a card and you're like, that's not a great result. That's not a result I'm happy with. If that happens, you have a couple of options. I'm going to pause here from the rules instruction, and I'm going to pop back to you, sir. How are you doing?
I'm okay. What's that? I don't think so. Did you wake back up? Yeah. Sorry, my wife just got home.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, yeah, you know what? I thought I had a moment. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll just need one more minute. I apologize.
Okay. So anyway, when you get a result you're not happy with, you have a couple of options. If you have a skill related to the task, and if you look at your character sheet, you'll see that each of the skills has a line through it, in which case you don't have that skill. It has a 1 or a 2. If it has a 1 on it, you can redraw up to once. If it has a 2 on it, you can redraw twice. And essentially, you just click on the next card to redraw. Whatever the last card you take gives you, that's the final result. So skills are the major way that you manipulate the deck. That's the most obvious and easy way to do that. The other thing that you can do is everyone has at least 2 fate points. Essentially, that's a currency you can spend to change things. You can spend a fate point to point to one of your aspects that's related. For example, everybody has a concept on their character sheet. And you can invoke that aspect to say, well, because I'm an elder elven wizard, I know about magical things. I'm going to spend a fate point to redraw. And so you spend the fate point, you tag the aspect, and you can draw the next card. The limit is you can only ever redraw twice the total. Okay. Are you back, sir? Okay. So let me get you real quickly oriented. We've got the Precision Duelist taken, the Wizard taken, and the Servant of the Inky God taken. That leaves us with the Rogue, the Healer, and the Noble.
That's funny, because those were the 3 I was interested in.
Okay, which one do you want?
Let's go with the gnome. I like the idea of the little martial arts healer.
Okay, I'm going to hide the other columns then, just to make it easier to work with here. And everybody should write in a name for yourselves and so on. There are two other things regarding the fate points that I want to say. At any point during the game, you can write in an aspect for your character, something you know, like expert sprinter or a culinary wizard or something like that. And typically you'd write it in to be related to a particular task that you're doing. When you do that, I give you a free fate point. So that's one of the ways you can get fate points during play as another resource. The other thing you can do is you'll see that you have a trouble aspect. That's the one in red. You can self-compel that, essentially say, I think my aspect is causing me problems. And you show and play it out that it is interfering with what you're doing. If you do so, then you can get a fate point from that. So that's called a self-compel in the game. Those are the big ones. And the most important things. Sometimes we'll have some other things on the table, and I'll talk about those mechanics when we get to those. Basically, how we're going to do this is you tell me what you do, and I will translate that into the system. We'll walk through that as we need to. I'm going to go ahead and hide the decks that we are not using. So there should be just the 4 decks out there. Okay. Are there any questions about that? I know that sounds super opaque, muddy level opaque, but I think we'll get through there. Any questions before we get rolling here? Okay. Then I want to start by having you describe to me how you're picturing your character. Give me the name, and I'm going to ask you a few questions about that character to give me a sense of how you are picturing them. So, Steve, can you tell me about your wizard?
Yes, his name is Delsarin Joro. He belonged to a powerful elvish noble family, and I say belonged because it is no longer powerful and it is no longer noble. He dresses in fashion that's probably about 30 years old, because he's been relatively poor ever since. His house had a large falling out with House Balin, who was their commercial enemy, and Balin succeeded beyond its wildest expectations at making House Joro poor and destitute.
So do you have a family here then in town, or are you sort of the last of the house?
There
remaining?
are a few members. I'll say more along the lines of cousins. But they've all, gone on to work, various jobs to, try and pay their way in the world.
Did you come to the Guards reluctantly, willingly? How did you get this gig?
I got the gig because I thought it was going to be easier than the various I guess water magics being performed for larger houses, and I didn't want to bend my knee to another house.
Okay, got that sense of pride.
After all, pride comes before a fall.
How are you picturing the elves? Tall, short? What are you thinking about their appearance?
Tall, but more of a gangly, spindly type.
Okay.
Versus the I guess what you see is the majestic Lord of the Rings type.
Sort of in the twilight years of Legolas and stuff.
Right.
To fall.
And maybe
All right.
maybe the younger ones are I guess more shorter, more evenly built. But the elders are still of the old guard. Still the tall, spindly, almost frail.
Do you imagine that he lives at the precinct house, or does he have his own apartment, or does he have a house? How are you picturing that?
He has a place that is certainly not glamorous, but he won't. He doesn't want to live with others.
Okay, that certainly makes sense. All right, thank you for that. I'd like to hear about the precision duelist next.
So Edward Greywand is a member of kind of a rising merchant family, sort of a house that's headed in the opposite direction from the one we just heard about, with a lot of connections in the merchant classes and in some of the lesser nobility, and with political aspirations. And he actually originally joined the Guard. Let me just silence all that. Originally joined the Guard because he thought it would be a good way to keep his finger and his house's fingers on the sort of criminal underground, the pulse of the criminal underground in town, as a way to, maybe leverage that connection, or it just seems like it would be a really useful series of contacts to have for somebody in the merchant class who had aspirations to rise a little further. After having served some period of time, a couple of months, a couple of tours of duty, actually finds himself surprisingly devoted to his comrades in the Guard. So he's a little bit conflicted a little bit torn between his duty to his house and his family, and to his newfound workmates.
Do you suppose this is the first time that he's had that kind of sense of loyalty, or that wasn't duty?
Yeah, he's primarily been, his life up to this point has primarily been informed by the attitudes of his family, which are about being very, very acquisitive and very ambitious, maybe just a little bit underhanded. So he's always been loyal to them, to the extent that groups like that, they're not a crime family, but they have some of that element, right? He's been loyal to them to the extent that they could help him,
right,
in those goals. So yeah, this is kind of a new experience for him. He's finding it a little bit. He surprised himself by putting himself in harm's way a few times to look after his fellow officers.
And what does Edward look like?
He is kind of a relatively nondescript human from middle height. He's in good shape physically, and he is an excellent duelist. But he's not particularly, a little bit of an everyman look about him. He's very affable and approachable. He's sort of cultivated the ability to, has kind of an easy way with strangers, is easy person to get to know. And he doesn't have he has that kind of understated charisma. He doesn't, he's not a really strikingly handsome or particularly unhandsome. He's kind of forgettable in a sense.
And how does he dress? Is he kind of still staying with some noble attire, or is he dressing down? As you mentioned, there's a uniform. What are you picturing?
He wears the uniform, and he also always carries a handkerchief with the badge of his house at all times. And his gear is always in really impeccable shape. He's, like off duty when he's sitting around the precinct house. He's always, maintaining his armor, oiling and maintaining his weapons. Comments from time to time that, a good craftsman takes care of his tools, and these are my tools.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Edward. All right. Now, may I hear about the servant of the Inky God?
My character, his name is Hapalada. He's in his late 20s. He's kind of short, bit tubby, black hair, not particularly pretty. he walks around wearing a black cape and blue metallic rings. The inky god is the blue-ringed octopus, and he worships this god for its intelligence and its craftiness, and also its ability to squeeze into tight places. He's didn't initially want to sign up to be the guards, to be a guard. He was more interested in the administration side, but he was rejected from the bureaucracy of the law, and he has resorted to being a guard as a way to try and get a foot in the door. So he's quite reluctant to be there in some ways, but he wants to do things right. He does really enjoy following rules and making sure that everyone around him is fully aware of the rules that they should be following.
Must have been, the Abashan, big city, has a big bureaucracy. It's a whole big building section of the city devoted to the civil service and things, and not being able to fulfill his dreams of getting a job there, copying papers and running ledgers. What was his reaction when he found out that wasn't going to be his life?
Initially, he thought it was an error. He thought it, obviously someone's not doing their job right. That's more of a reason for him to be in there. But when he contacted the HR department to follow it up, he was told that he was too fastidious.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think he's of the opinion that the bureaucracy needs a shake-up, and that they're letting work slide, and that they want to lose certain bits of paper. There's a bit of corruption, and it was his opinion from the interview from the HR that they were worried that he would not be able to be corrupted when required.
Nice. So one of the details that's on the sheet about your character is that you've got this unfortunately weighty breastplate and an overly large sword. Why does Hapa have those? Why is he wearing them? What's the deal there?
They're ceremonial. So the breastplate has embossed an image of the inky god in all its many-limbed glory, and the huge sword that he carries is actually shaped as an octopus beak. So not only is it large, but it almost opens and closes like a beak or scissors. So it would look quite ridiculous, but he is so dedicated that he does not see the ridiculousness in it.
And there are a lot of gods in Abashan, a lot of cults and things like that. One of the factors is that that there's no magic that can do informational magics, and the gods have a hard time seeing here. But a lot of gods, a lot of cults here. Would you say that the inky god is well known, not well known?
No, not very well known. So I think that's also makes him look a bit odd as well, a bit out of place. I think he's come across the inky god through some of his many hours of reading, and once he saw some information on this god, he just felt an instant connection and just delved deeper and deeper into that world.
Awesome. Would you suppose that are there many other worshippers in the city, or are you the only one?
No, I think there's a few scattered around. There's probably a dilapidated church somewhere near a manky pond. So they probably throw offerings into the pond, and spend a couple of days, 24 hours a day, writing and muttering chants to the god in celebration.
Nice. All right. Last but not least is our gnome healer. Please tell me about Argo or Argot. How do you want to pronounce that?
Argo was what I'm thinking. Yeah, I think that Argo's been, sort of a man of the people type of healer. Like, I kind of picture him sort of, jolly and always on a wagon and a little Friar Tuckish, maybe talking more than he really needs to, and always sort of like there when people aren't expecting him to be, because he's asking, hey, what's going on over here? Just assuming that he's welcome, and generally he is, because he's actually sort of a jolly guy. And for the most part, the things that he's learned in his times, he's been able to use to the benefit of people, so he is relatively welcome. Everybody's happy to see somebody who can, help when breathing illnesses start up, or when, kids have fevers, or just any of these things that kind of pop up in a place like the pit. And so people tend to just sort of hand wave him. He's tiny little guy with a big smile on his face all the time. So they just don't assume that he's up to much, and I think that's why he's so sort of valuable to the guard, because he just sort of accidentally hears about a lot of stuff, because nobody really bothers kicking him out, and in that vein, he maybe cultivates that image a little bit, to maybe at some point in the past he realized that he needed to, be able to defend himself, and so sought out people that, could train him to do a little bit while seeming pretty unpresuming. I wouldn't go so far as to say he's some like Jackie Chan drunken martial artist or anything like that, but
fair enough.
He can take care of himself in a pinch, and if anything, people who are professional warriors are a little surprised that this sort of, blabbering, rotund little fellow has kind of the sense of balance that he has, and maybe they're surprised by the sort of calluses that he hands, not just on the inside of his hands as somebody who works a lot, but somebody, who has them on his, knuckles and wrists and things like that as well. But for the most part, he kind of keeps that to himself. They're his morning ablutions. They're the things he does meditatively when he's alone. Usually he's just, sort of around town being seen and, seeing who there is to be seen.
How are you picturing gnomes? Are there what about their height or ears or other features? What when somebody looks at a gnome, what do they see?
I feel like more so than maybe some of the other races, the divide between the elder and the young is really huge and pronounced. I think that the elder gnomes almost look like they're a completely different species. They are, tall to the point of seeming unrelated. They're sort of, like thin and majestic, maybe to sort of appropriate the majestic elves that aren't being seen in the elves. People would have almost said, "Oh, this is where elves come from." No, actually, it's where gnomes come from. And in the way that people aren't sure really why the young races have come upon such a divergent sort of path, the young ones are just so much shorter, and they have maybe some of the same personality characteristics across the stereotypes, but for the most part, you get your more almost sort of a garden gnome kind of appearance. They all tend to be kind of small, and they tend to have beards, and the women tend to look like strong but farmstead homesteaders. They all are sort of like earthy and squat. They just don't at all seem like these tall, beautiful sort of things that are the elder gnomes.
One last question. What does your magic look like? Now, your magic is touch range rather than other magic, has a distance to it. So what does your magic actually look like when you do it?
So I know that you said the magic has to be really obvious.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a matter of it, him trying to hide it, but it definitely seems like it's a thing that happens as he's using his hands. It's not so much like he casts his spell and he lays on hands and there's a glow. There has to be like a really sort of tactile. It's almost more like when he starts doing the first aid that heals people, then the magic sort of like kind of comes up almost like an aura. It's the things that other people would do, but then the lights start to glow when his hands start to, shake, and there's the wisps of the winds, and there's the slight resonance in the air that sounds almost, choral. But it's not the casting of a spell, it's a doing of the job that makes those sort of trappings of magic kick in while he's doing what he's doing.
Awesome. All right, so we've got a picture of our 4 characters. All 4 of you have worked together before. You're at the same station. You've worked together, and as we start out, essentially, you are coming on to the day shift here, the morning, which means that you all roll in to get essentially to the briefing room there. None of the chairs match. There are tables off to the side. If somebody had brewed a big pot of tea, by this point, it is just the dregs and leaves down at the bottom of that left for you. The night shift having finished it off and not rebrewed the tea. And when you get in there, there is the lictor, the overseer. Essentially, he's the legal expert that if you have legal questions, you're supposed to get to. His name is Chrysanthemus, and he's asleep in a corner. He is always asleep in the corner. He's just a big pile of robes and muttering. And roll in, and after a couple of minutes, your sergeant comes in. Her name is Dara. Older, kind of grizzled features, got a scar on her face. She's got that long red hair that has gone gray. She's got the uniform on. Uniform maybe don't formally mark yourselves. You might have a badge, or you might have a jacket. She wears the whole ensemble, and she is smoking a huge, awful cigar that just drips with tar as she takes it in, and then she'll put it down by the lectern, and she'll look up and she'll say, "Is everybody okay? Everybody good? Y'all set? Ready? Shift? Good?
Good.
Okay, good. That's what I like to hear. Nothing. No complaints. Nothing. That's what I want to hear. All right. So, Charles Nalig sends his greetings. So just want to tell you that the Fifth Swords, one of the other guard groups, they took down Gentleman Lizelle, the vampire thief, last night. So they got some kudos for that. So just be aware that we got to try and catch up. We had a freak magic storm last night that came over the pit. A lot of rain. You're going to want to watch out for mud today. A couple of the sections are kind of washed out. Should also tell you that there is the Amateur Brewers Festival going on at the Plaza Broken Wings. So you might want to avoid that. Traffic's going to be congested. Keep in mind that they're not allowed to call their product beer or ale. That's restricted. So if you hear somebody crying out and calling that, remember that they're not allowed to do that. Not that it is beer or ale.
Why is there a festival with a prohibited substance?
Oh, it's not the substance that's prohibited. They just can't claim that it's beer or ale.
But they shouldn't sell it then.
Oh no, they can sell it. They just can't advertise it as something it's not.
Okay. But also, there's a new non-smoking sign up on the wall. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's right behind you.
Yeah, I put it there myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've got a couple of things on the agenda. I'll leave it to you to decide what you want to deal with. Whatever you don't deal with will come back and bite us in the ass, I'm sure. So just to tell you that, all right? So let's see what I've got. So we've had some adventurers, adventurers come rolling through. Some of them got rolled by some people. That's not unusual. Adventurers wander down here looking for excitement, and they get taken advantage of. Except that one of them apparently got offed, and he was escorting a young man who belongs to some family with some pull upstairs. They can't find the kid, so keep your eyes out on that. We'd like to get him back and find out what went on with that. The other thing is we've had some recent fires. Last night we had a big fire just a few hours ago. It got put out with the vigils, the firefighters and stuff. We're not sure if they're doing their job or not doing their job or what's going on. But the warehouse owner is a friend of us. He pays his bills on time. And is pretty decent. So it would be good if we could check out what went on with the warehouse and maybe get that seen to and get him calmed down.
Their name?
Oh, yeah. Let me see here. Hang on. Let me get to the paper. Oh, the warehouse owner is Abnero the Jackal. Nice guy. And the guy who got offed, his name is Kajarin. Anything else?
Do you know who the young man Kajarin was escorting?
Linzit, yeah. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's what I'm going with, if anyone asks, okay? All right. Hearing no other questions, I'm going to let you get to work. if you have any questions, any issues come up legalese-wise, talk to Chrysanthemous. I got to go and do some more briefings. So have a good day and be safe out there. And she very ostentatiously reaches over and picks up the cigar, puts it in her mouth, puffs a couple times, and then leaves. And so you are left in this haze of smoke to decide how you four wish to proceed. Who do you think is the person who would normally make the decisions here?
I think that... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Delsarin would certainly try, but I don't know if anyone listens to him.
Okay. So sorry, what are you pulling for?
Sounds like the fires need to be dealt with. It's hard enough to get water. Well, the city has plenty of water, but with the buildings always being, so dry, it's easy to cause damage to them. What do you think, Argo?
Honestly, that festival sounds awfully good. I know that she said to avoid the place, but, when people are having their tongues loosened by liquor, there's always going to be something interesting going on, and more to the point, there's going to be people having a little bit too much. I think it's just the kind of thing that we should be on the watch out for, but if we've got these other things to deal with, I guess we should deal with them first. I don't know. I'd rather go down to the party, of course. He looks around at you guys, though, but...
Edward?
Right. I'm kind of surprised nobody wants to go look for the missing noble kid. And he's being escorted through our part of town. Somebody bumps off his admittedly probably incompetent adventurer bodyguard, and the Lindsay or whatever his name is missing. I think we could garner a lot of favor in the right places if we were to track that down. Appa, what do you think?
I'll just go with what you think best, Grey Wand. And I definitely do not think that we should be going to that festival. The boss said that's definitely off the cards. Let's not even go near it.
I just meant with tongue's a little loose, and we might hear about what's going on with this Lindsay. I'm gonna say this name wrong all night, aren't I? Lindsay. We don't know what kind of rumors we'll hear, but then again, maybe we'll hear something just walking the streets too. I think that maybe we should check out that warehouse first, because honestly, other than walk through the alley where they were jumped, I don't know what to start with in terms of looking for the kid. I feel like we should maybe find a little bit of information to lead us towards them.
And certainly, you don't have to stick together. You could split up to handle different legs of the investigation. That's entirely up to you how you wish to deal with that. But I certainly, Grey Wand, I heard you backed by the Inky Priest. What do you think?
Also, I'll go, that witnesses under the influence cannot be relied upon. So I think you should really think long and hard about, your course of action.
Well, it's not as if I want to go and bumble about partaking of the wares. Just want to see what's going on.
No. That'd be totally out of character for you.
Oh, you know what? I've got to maintain my physique is all. You don't look like this with no effort. But
no round was considered a physique. That was
it's a shape.
Healing.
A shape is a physique. That's what I've been told by wise people.
Argo, I think you have a point.
we combine a couple of suggestions here. We walk through the alley where the kid and his bodyguard, or at least where the bodyguard's body turned up, on our way to the warehouse. Does that sound good?
That sounds fine.
That sounds excellent.
All right.
Great.
So we would cut, moving through the streets of this town, and stone buildings. Some of them cracked and crumbled. A lot of places have been rebuilt. Remember that this was a section of the city, and then there was a sinkhole, and it fell down, and it's been rebuilt on top of that. So it's kind of a mess down here. And you're wandering through. Definitely in the distance, you can hear the sound of a festival going on, or at least a gathering, or at least a bunch of people drinking. You're not sure what level of noise exactly is being generated over there. But you will find yourselves in the area that the body was found. So it sounds to me like you're trying to investigate, trying to find things out. So let me kind of come around and check what your method is. So let's start with Grey Wand, and we'll kind of move through there. Grey Wand, how do you approach this?
Well, I think the part of this I understand best is the violence.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll look. Is there anything to indicate where this, adventurer's body was found? If there is, I'll look for blood splatters or anything around there that looks to me like could have been a consequence of whatever happened to him. Maybe I'll look to see if there's a likely spot from which somebody could have laid an ambush. That's how I'll approach it.
Okay. Well, so that's going to be a mental pull. You're going to pull a card. We're going to look at what the mental result is, and you can re-pull using your investigation skill.
All right. So here we go. Looks like mental is great.
Okay. So got a great result on that. You kind of take a look around. It looks like there might have been some effort to kind of keep the crime scene relatively intact. It looks like single person, the armored, judging by that. It looks like a couple of attackers ambushed, probably snuck up upon. The thing that will strike you as the most unusual thing here is you will find some what you would describe as sleeping powder, alchemical concoction, some of that spilt out here, like the dregs of that on the ground. So perhaps somebody was actually using something more intense to knock out this adventurer. So that's the general info. I'm going to let you ask a question.
Is there anything to indicate what direction the attackers departed in? A trail of sleeping powder maybe dribbled down the alley?
It doesn't look like there's a trail that way. You will see that they clearly tried to strip the armor off of the guy after he was killed. And there's maybe they got some pieces and dropped it and then took off. Like maybe they were interrupted in the middle of what they're doing. But it doesn't seem like they were dropping sleeping powder or any other kind of a major physical trail there.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Hapa, what's your approach to investigation?
Harper delves into his leather satchel and pulls out a map of the area and starts to look at where the possible ambush routes were coming from and where the potential trail may be leading.
Ooh, interesting.
And he's also having a look around for making notes on the addresses and any like shop fronts or any like locational information that you might be able to collect.
All right. Let me have you make a mental pull. Investigation. You've got that, so you can re-pull with that. Let's see what you get.
Well, sorry.
No, that's okay.
It just seems. Oh, there we go. Way. I'm A-okay.
Okay. So you got okay. So you get some basic information. Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is what I'm going to try and do throughout the evening, by the way. I'm going to tell you now is you're going to draw and you're going to do okay or just fine. And I'll say, oh, is that, you can re-pull and maybe try and do better. And I'm going to try and lure you and to push your luck. So I'm just going to make you aware of that right now. It looks to you like kind of checking this out. There aren't that many great ambush points here just because of the way the street is set up, the fact that there's a bar across the way. But you kind of are mapping this out and looking, and you realize that there are a couple of spots here where potentially there are ambush points, but in order to do that, the people who did this would have to have been small. It'd have to be children or a gnome or hobbits or something like that. So that's what you can kind of spot there. Does that seem like reasonable info?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Harper's looking at his maps and then looking around at the corresponding places and then just looks and stares at Argo.
Okay.
These might be your friends. Your friends might have been involved in this. Argo.
My friends? Why do you say that? I mean, I have many friends, and so I'd like to say that there's just the odds of them being my friends, but I have a feeling that you mean more than just what you're saying.
Yes, I'm in a very diplomatic sense. They appear to be of a similar stature to yourself.
Oh, I knew you can't trust fat people. All right.
Oh,
well,
no. That's you have a very generous physique, but I'm referring to your vertical displacement.
Oh, I see.
They were short.
Yes. Well,
thank you, Greymont.
I am friends with many short people. That would be interesting to pursue as I start casting my glance about the alley, and I probably am actually, like, before we enter the alley and then, like, when we come through looking on the other side, just kind of keeping note of who the beggars are, who the standard sort of foot traffic folks are, trying to get a feel for who could I go and maybe like start chatting up that might have actually seen. I know it was probably at a weird hour, but people come to places like this to be private, but there's still comings and goings that are observed by people that you just don't expect to be there. And now she's telling me if it's somebody short, they might seem out of place, or somebody might have seen someone skulking down a particular alley or duck into a particular door. So once I kind of size things up and take her information for what it is, maybe I'll say, if you guys want to keep looking around, I think maybe I'll go ask around a little bit, see what people have seen and what people have heard of what's going on.
So that sounds like it's going to be a social pull. Kind of doing you're talking to people, and I think the appropriate one is contacts for the repull on that. So let's have you go ahead and make that pull.
Okay, and I'm sorry that I missed that beginning chunk. The ×1 means that you can have up to one.
You can have up to one redraw.
Okay, and then from what you had said earlier about luring us in, is there like a bad consequence of pulling multiple times?
Yes, you always take the last card you pulled. So whatever card you pull past is
Okay.
gone.
I see. Alrighty. So let's see what happens the first time. So draw one.
Oh,
Did I do that wrong?
So what you're going to do, let me recall that.
Okay.
There. Okay, you're just going to click on, when you mouse over it, you'll see that the card kind of lifts up on top. You just click on that.
Okay. Haha.
great.
Great
That's just
social.
great.
So you will find essentially a bouncer for one of the bars around here. One of the people who does the sort of the early morning sweeping, and he's still out here. He's kind of bent and gnarled, but he's a feisty fighter type, and you kind of ask him about that, and he says, "Oh, you're talking about Kajerin Tan, right? The guy, the fighter type of guy."
Yeah. That's obviously who I'm talking about.
I know he does guide stuff for nobles who come down here looking for adventure-y things to get maybe a taste of adventure in a safe place. So parents will send him. It's like a summer camp for nobles. Anyways, yeah. So I hadn't seen him for a while, but last night he came down the street and he was looking for somebody, and he had got all beat up to hell. He was already like really in bad shape when I saw him, and I kind of stayed out of his way because he looked like he was fuming mad, and looking for somebody. And then the next thing I heard in the morning was that somebody had rolled him and taken him out.
My goodness, these are alarming times, and he came through this way. Do you know where Kajarin normally is found? I mean, obviously he's not in his element when he's walking this way, all up in his own head. But where does he live? Who does he hang out with? Do you know?
Well, if he's on a pay, then he's probably at the Hue and the Cry, that tavern. That's usually where he'd stay.
Oh, my thanks, my thanks. I think this would be most helpful information. I'll definitely keep that in mind, my friend. And I kind of reach out.
You do that.
And, I take his hands in both of mine and kind of clasp it over. And as I pull away, there's, some small coin that's left behind.
He does that thing where he bites on it to make sure it's not lead.
All right.
So let me cut to Delsarin. Our elven mage there. They're checking around, reading maps, talking to people. How does Delsarin deal with this? Is this just
he leans against the wall for a little bit and thinks. He's been around these parts for a great number of years. Mm-hmm. Through, I think before this was the pit. He knows generally what people come around here for. Like what sort of adventure, what's the latest, hidden temple that someone's, looking for around here. Mm-hmm. So he wants to, basically scrub his, memory and see what were they doing down here. People don't come down here just to get beat up and kidnapped. They have goals. And the summer camp set, they're always looking for, some bit of lore, some bit of, magic that they can, come home with.
Let's have you make a mental pull here for me. And there is a scroll bar for the cards.
What does that say? Crawling from the wreckage, fail and gain a free fate point, or make a hard bargain to succeed. as interesting as this could be, I think I'm going to redraw.
You can redraw with lore. You've got
And I
up
was
to
thinking
2.
with lore. Just missed.
So just missed with
And I do
mental.
have lore times 2.
Yeah.
So, I'm definitely racking my brain for this. Let's see how it comes.
Oh.
Well, I like the Rollmaster reference, by the way.
Yeah. So moment of glory. So if Kajarin, this guy was here in this particular part of town, from putting sort of 2 and 2 together, he probably was doing that thing where he convinces young nobles that he can show them adventure, and then takes them on kind of a wild goose chase around, or hunts for, quote unquote ruins around in here. So he's probably doing that. That's how you get a sense of that. But if Kajarin was coming here looking for somebody, then he was not looking for good folks around here. This is the place where hucksters and forgers and pawn shops all operate out of, and so that's what's going on here. And given that the armor was taken, that it was stolen, whoever did this probably is involved with those other adventurers getting rolled for their equipment. So point you to pawnbrokers as a possibility, a good lead from here. I'll give you a follow-up question.
So if he's in this area and that's where he was rolled and the youngster was kidnapped, what was the youngster doing here?
Well, the witnesses don't say that the youngster was anywhere around here. So the youngster was probably gone before Kajarin even got here. So maybe that's why he was angry. Maybe something happened to the kid before this whole thing went down, and somewhere else.
Good to know. Like, if we're looking for those who did this, I would say the pawn shop would be the first place. But from everything we've gathered so far, the noble was taken somewhere else or went missing somewhere else.
So just to clarify, so the kid's been missing. We know that he was hanging out with Kajarin, but that has nothing to do with the fact that we found Kajarin. We just sort of assumed that from earlier.
You assumed that he would have had the kid with him, or the kid would have been taken here, but now it's looking like something happened to the kid before Kajarin got killed.
Okay.
Bless you.
Was Kajarin's body found?
It was found here in the morning. Okay. Yep. And it was probably carried away. There are essentially the corpse bearers that will have the body. Keep it there until somebody claims it. It's about midpoint. Let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll continue on with the sort of this scene finished, and we'll figure out where we're heading to next. Okay?
Okay. Get back in 5.
So I was curious. This is like a fate kind of derivative, right? Is that
Yep.
what he's going
yes.
for? Okay.
Just pulling cards instead of rolling fate dice.
Okay.
So
That's
the cards are, some of them are general, and then some of them are specific to our archetype.
Okay. Are they supposed to mimic the curve of the 4 fudge dice? Or
I'm guessing. I don't know for certain though.
Yeah. It's a question.
I don't know if
for
it's
Lowell, but I would assume so.
distribution.
right. Have you guys played it before with Lowell?
I have not.
Nope.
This is actually my first Gauntlet game.
Oh, is it? Welcome.
Yeah, it's my second. They fill up so fast if you're not like
Yep.
chicken hawking the enough.
That's the couple times. It's a couple times I've gotten lucky with like this one with Lowell, and then ended up getting into 2 on Saturday, which is good and bad at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of eats up a day.
No, I understand. I can't really look at my phone during the workday, so I've got like my little window.
Right.
Something's open. I should check it out.
That's how it was when Jason was releasing all his games, and I'm like,
Mm.
I got to drive. Sorry, I guess I'm not going to get in any of these.
Yeah, I think it is good that people are starting to spread out, so we're not getting everything on 1 or 2 days. Because several months ago, everything was dropping like on the first. So
Right, a number of people were dropping them right at the end of the month or the beginning of the next for a month out.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like a feeding frenzy of piranhas.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at a computer screen almost all day long for my job, but
Oh, wow.
working, so it's not.
Right. Yeah, same. I had the Slack notifications turned on. I had my Gmail notifications turned on. Not quick enough.
I've jumped in and managed to RSVP for a couple of things in a big hurry in the past, and then after I got over the excitement of having successfully RSVP'd for a Gauntlet event, I actually went and looked at the calendar and said, "Oh, I'm already committed that night. I can't actually play," so I just had to drop right back out.
Yeah, I've definitely missed things because I was like, "Ooh, this sounds interesting. Let me go check my calendar." And then
Yeah.
come back. I'm like, "Oh, I should have replied right away."
Well, I will say I've been pleased that the having a good wish list system has been as effective as it is. We have been able to move people in, and I would say 1 out of 3 games I have people from the wish list move in the last week usually. So
Yeah. No, there was definitely something that I had signed up for incorrectly. I thought I'd signed up for it, and I hadn't because I had signed up for another session. And so I just put myself on the wait list and just got the email today. Like, "Oh, you've been bumped up." So, I think that definitely is a benefit for the way the whole system works together. And it was interesting. I think somebody else had said, "Hey, join that wait list because it lets you know there's demand for that particular game." I think that's also sort of like an interesting little bond.
I'm really hopeful that more Blades in the Dark and Mutineer Zero games will turn up, since those get posted and there's immediately like 2 or 3 people on the wait list for them all the time. So
yeah, I was like, I like to run different things. But I was like, geez, I probably got to figure out what I'm going to do here. And
Yeah. No, I'm definitely excited for that Mutineer Zero. I think that'll be super cool, and I really want to see how that exploring the map mechanic works.
yeah, I never did hex crawls when I played D&D, so this is kind of a new thing for me. But it's a very fun set of tools and simple tools for doing a pseudo hex crawl, and it's light enough that it doesn't feel like we're in a full D&D crunch mode at all.
Right.
I've done hex crawls, and I ran for about 3 or 4 years in my basement. I ran a face-to-face Ben Robbins style West Marches campaign, if that means anything to you. And Mutineer Zero just strikes me as that would be a beautiful game to run West Marches style game in, 2 or 3 different groups of players, leaving clues for each other behind, and That was always a really good time.
Oh yeah. Actually, when I did the 2 parallel Rollmaster games in December, they were both in the Slumbringer Assigned Dunes, and bits from one game were nicely, just little bits were crossing over. So I like that kind of parallel play. And we'll start when Ellen gets back.
Hey, Lowell, I wanted to say that, so in your little Google Docs, I was looking at the 10 things about Abashan, and as I was looking at it, it felt, like a very big world. So I actually went and Googled, like, oh, what's this book that he's looking at? And I was like, oh, this is his thing. Once I stumbled across it on Age of Ravens, it's really
and
cool.
Originally built using microscope. We
Yeah,
did
yeah.
the
I
city
think I
construction
eventually
with
found
microscope.
that post. That was neat. But you kind of like hacked microscope a little bit, right? Like it's not exactly the normal setup.
We did it as a city. So instead of building like a history, you're actually building the neighborhoods and then places in the neighborhoods, and then rumors about the neighborhoods. Those are sort of the 3 levels. And we've done that a few times and it's worked really well.
I feel like in your post you mentioned something about like sort of being inspired by like having read Dresden, like the RPG, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Just before that, like, do you find doing microscope to be like a lot more friendly than trying to go through the Dresden stuff, or does it seem to like overlap? Because I've only sort of like vaguely looked at both of them. I haven't had much chance to really get a good look at either.
I think the microscope thing is much easier to set up and run on the fly. It's the Dresden stuff has a lot of baggage built in and a lot of very specific things, whereas I think microscope is it's just fun. You get crazy, dumb, stupid stuff, and I love it. So you've investigated this alley. You've got some places you could go. You also talked about going to the warehouse. Do you want to split up? Do people want to head different directions? Do you want to stick together? What's the plan? Let's start this time with Delsarin, since I kind of ended with you last time. What does Delsarin think?
I want to check out this pawn shop and see who may have been after Kajarin. See if someone has come in with some of his armor to get rid of it.
Okay.
Edward, do you want to join me? You seem to know a little bit about these types.
Definitely.
So Hoppa and Argo follow that lead, or head somewhere else to follow something else up.
I'm happy to look over some ledgers and their books to see what we might come across.
Well, talking to the bouncer just outside, he had mentioned that Kajarin had been staying at the Hue and Cry, or at least he typically does. Perhaps stopping in there, we might be able to find something. But if you wanted to go with the others and look over the ledgers, I totally understand. I think that doing a bit of a meet and greet at a tavern, either way, it would be good. So,
well, that's definitely more your style of investigation.
Right.
All right. So I hear some of you going to the pawn shop, and Argo's going to check out where Kajarin was staying, right? Let's do the pawn shop first, if you guys don't mind. So you'll check around a few places here. Probably hit a couple that they're fine. There doesn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary. But you definitely will hit a couple that seem like maybe they do have somebody to hide. So who's doing the kind of the lead for the social presence here, for playing good cop or playing bad cop, or playing accountant cop? What's the approach between you three?
I think good cop, accountant cop works pretty well. I can let the pawnbroker know that I'm maybe interested in a new suit of armor, or another set of armor, or maybe I'm looking to try to fit my companion here with a less weighty set of armor. Hoppa could maybe use something a little better suited to life on the mean streets, and not something that belongs so much on the battlefield.
Okay.
And if he seems resistant, I'll turn on the charm.
Okay. Let's have you make a social pull, and I think kind of a little bit of guile here, a little bit of charm, but let's see what your social pull is.
Okay. And
so that is a unique bad card. That is your unique bad card.
Well, and my guile is zip, so I guess I'm stuck with it.
So
I actually get really interested in buying a new suit of armor.
Yeah, and that is what it is. Is you're like, oh wow, this pawnbroker actually has some really good stuff here, and you're kind of picking through it, and you two will recognize Edward's sort of drifting off in another direction. So what's your approach, Hoppa?
Harper can see Grey One being sort of shown around the shop and is so interested. But while he's super interested, the shopkeeper is super interested in like getting his money. So Harper wants to have a look around the service desk and see if there's a ledger or something there that he could have a quick look through, or possibly pocket for later.
Ooh. Well, let's have you make a mental pull here. This sounds like investigator lore.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
You can just click on the one that's up top. We'll get that one back in the deck when you redraw.
Okay. Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Amazing.
Amazing. So there is that bit where you lean over the counter and kind of turn the book around and kind of looking at it. And this is something you are very good at. You do this very quickly. We probably get that image of numbers in the air. If this were a movie, we would see you doing the quick calculations. This pawnbroker, he has a bunch of stuff that he's been taking in and not sort of recording. Clearly he's got a set of shady stuff that he's taken in over the last couple weeks that is off the books. And just from the notes and comparing it to the inventory, it's definitely adventuring gear and that kind of thing. So this guy has definitely involved in that.
Yeah, okay. So Harper looks over at Delsaran, like,
I'll come over.
Place. This is the place. The
And
place.
I see you looking at the book. I'm like, understood. And I'm going to go up to the shopkeep. And as he's showing Edward around. And
hello, my open friend.
like, You need to be straight with us.
Oh, with the guards, I'm always straightforward. Propriety is my middle name in this.
That's good. I would hate to have to involve a greater watch of this establishment.
Oh, I wouldn't like
around
that
the
either.
clock to find out what we need.
Oh, no, there's no need for that. Don't have to have anybody watching my door or standing over me or anything like that.
Exactly.
So,
we don't want to take the time. You don't want to deal with the hassle.
Sure. And he turns back to Edward briefly and goes, "Oh, yeah, so I can cut you a good deal. Half off." And he looks back at you like, clearly that's what you want.
Like, you mistake
Well,
my
wait.
thinly veiled threats. We need you to tell.
Completely confused. Of course.
We need you to tell us who's been passing off merchandise. Shall we say, acquired by violent means. And if you do so, we'll ignore any of the merchandise you've already collected. If you don't, well, there's plenty of people who would like to take a look at the shop and find the evidence they need.
There's no need for that. Let's have you make a social poll. You've got a good presence to kind of exert there, so you can re-pull on that. Let's see if he takes you seriously.
Let's see myself. Just missed.
Okay.
So I will use my presence.
Okay, can re-pull with that.
And test my luck. Catastrophic.
Okay.
Well,
now,
let's see. What other things could I do here?
You have fate points.
You got fate
I
points.
do have fate points.
You could tag your high concept, or you could add a new aspect, give yourself a fate point, and tag off of that.
Let's sure. I'm going to give myself the aspect. Let's say I want to be able to intimidate him. I always get my way.
Nice. Okay. And so you get a free fate point for that, and you can spend that right away to invoke it.
I will.
You'll get the last re-pull here.
Let me see. Oh, there can't be too many catastrophics in here. Great.
Oh, look at that.
I like great.
So he's still been using Edward kind of as trying to block on you, but finally you get him kind of cornered.
And I think maybe I grab his shirt.
Okay. Oh, bony elven hands. Come on. Hey, watch it, man. So, what? Look, I didn't know that they were doing anything real bad. I knew they were doing bad stuff, but I didn't know they were doing real bad stuff.
Just tell us who, and we won't have to seize your merchandise.
The Nalakars, they're hobbits. I don't know if they're brother and sister or married or what. They've been coming on over the last couple of weeks with adventure stuff. They managed to get it. I don't ask questions. And, they've got good things. Does that answer your question? Good.
Where can we find them?
I don't know. Last I heard, they were outside of town. Like, they come in from time to time. They've got something they're running. I don't know what it is. But you can't miss them. There's a lot of bars they've been kicked out of. If you ask about them, they'll tell you.
Like
the hue and cry.
Oh no, hue and cry is kind of upscale. They wouldn't be cut. They wouldn't even get in the door there. Well, he says, "Look, we're not talking high quality hobbits here. Okay, people say hobbits live in a hole in the ground. These guys literally live in a hole in the ground. Okay."
Elsarin looks down at him. There's no such thing as a high quality hobbit.
My sentiments exactly, but they are paying customers, or rather, they selling customers. So,
I turn and I'm like,
not like you, my fine elvish sir.
Maybe Argo will get his wish, Edward, and we'll be able to slum through all the bars that a low-class hobbit would enjoy.
He looks to make sure that this seems to have satisfied the three of you, and he will kind of express some relief. He'll be willing to show you some of the pieces of armor, including the nice one that Edward was looking at, that were sold here by the Nalakars.
That used to be Kajurans.
He doesn't have any Kajarans bits, but he has gear that these hobbits clearly got off of other people.
Harper would like to see if there's any pattern between the types of armors and gear stolen, whether it's with the armor itself or who was potentially wearing it.
That's a really good question. I'm going to have you make a mental poll. I'm going to answer that question, and then I'm going to cut to Argo. So let's have you make a mental poll with investigation. What do we get? Is that a just missed?
Yep. I'll pull again.
Okay.
Oh. Stop it. There we go.
Okay. Just play the draw. Means you draw the next card and you have to take it. Unless you give me a fate point.
Okay. I want to see what this does.
So, you start working through this armor, trying to figure it out, and there's just so much stuff here, and you want to categorize all of it. That's the process that you start in, and I don't think it'll take Delsara and Edward all that long to realize that you've stopped investigating and you're probably sorting things, right?
Yeah, totally. Like writing new signs for his shelves and reorganizing everything, and then going back to the ledger and like filling in the gaps.
Yeah. And so you're doing that, and kind of making a scene. So people may have realized that you're checking out. You know, they know the guards are checking out this pawnbroker. Word may start to get around. Eventually, they'll be able to pull you away from that. But you're not going to find any pattern on the armor, unfortunately.
But I'm pretty sure Harper's having a great time.
Oh, yeah. Just the best. Because some of his stuff
clearly
wasn't for regulation storage, so you can get that fixed. Argo. Do you think you're known at the Hue and Cry?
I would say that. Well, let me ask this: is it within the bounds of our beat?
Yes,
Because
but it is one of the few sort of higher class institutions here.
I would say that they probably actually know me sort of well as the guy who comes in when he's got money burning a hole in his pocket just to be able to get some food that he normally can't get. So he doesn't really come in a guard capacity as much as he's the tubby little guard who comes in when he wants to say oh, what's the latest delicacy that you happen to have brought in that's rare, that sort of thing.
So when you go in, the tavern keep will go, Officer Singris, you're in uniform today.
I shrug and I say, well, we can't come in for quail's tongue and that divine sauce every day. I wish I could.
Oh, yes, and I would, a customer like yourself, keeping the peace, keeping everything calm. I'm always appreciative of that. What can this humble innkeep do for you today?
Well, my friend. And he, I was going to say puts a hand on his shoulder, but probably more sort of puts a hand up on his kidney as he tries to pull him aside and says,
Yes.
You may have heard, you fellow named Kajarin. I heard he was staying here or has in the past. And seems that the fellow's reached some ill ends, if you know what I mean. And, well, of course, it's our job. We need to follow up and find out what's going on. I was wondering if either you or anybody here had just seen him last night. The things that I'm following up on seem to say that he was in some sort of row, some sort of, fume and funk. He was storming through the streets upset. And we have reason to think that perhaps this has a connection to a client he had. So perhaps you've seen him with a young boy. And then I kind of give Linset's description
yes,
insofar.
Yes, absolutely. The young noble and he were staying here. They'd been here for several days. Kajarin does this, takes these youngsters on.
Oh, and all on the youngster's dime, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. But I had the sense that they had found something.
Oh.
And then yesterday morning, he and the young lad,
or perhaps just worried. What sort of sense did they give that made you think this?
Well, when they left yesterday morning, they were all geared up. They had the full thing. They had the iron rations and the boots high hard and the rope and
off on expedition.
Oh yeah, they had the whole thing, the iron spikes, caltrops, all of that kind of stuff.
Was the young man holding the 10-foot pole? I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all of it with like the tag still on it for the young man. But they headed out, and that was the last time I saw them.
Indeed. And their gear, it seemed more of a spelunking nature or an off into the wilderness. I mean, obviously food, you need to have food, and where else better to get some form of rations? Shame that they chose to use iron.
I don't sell rations.
Yes.
I want to make that clear. There are no rations sold here.
No. I would have assumed that had they come here to get their actual food, they'd be having delicacies to sustain them on the roads.
Exactly. There's no wilderness around these parts. I had the sense that they were going dungeon crawling.
Indeed.
Makes a face.
Well, my friend, I don't suppose you would mind me poking about their rooms. After all, this is in an official capacity, and he isn't in a position to come back.
See, you don't need to check their room because I heard this morning that the gentleman had passed. And given that he had rented the room and he was somewhere in arrears, I had already gathered his gear to resell, as is my right as an innkeeper upon the passing of a patron. I get to loot their room. The loot is probably not the best word to be using for that, but
You must recover the losses that are sustained as they cannot pay you out further.
of course. I like it when you talk like that. And he will take you back to a trunk that has some stuff in it. If you want to pick through it.
Okay. I think since it seems like they've gone, and I'm more trying to get a feel for what they may have discovered, I'm looking for if they've got some small artifact that might give me a clue that, oh, they went dungeon delving here, or if they have, if he took equipment with him, something that like indicates we were planning on spending this amount of time out before we came back, because obviously he was separated from Lenson by the time we heard about all this.
Let's see. You're going to get some information. I want to see what the level of that is. So let's have you make a mental poll. You can repoll with investigation.
Okay. Let's see. Mental. Man, we're a distractible bunch, aren't we? You know what? I'm going to repull, but I think I'm going to be distracted anyway, because I think the smells from the kitchen are sort of pulling me aside. So regardless of the repull, I might just be a little delayed in rejoining the others.
Okay. And they are a little delayed in rejoining you. So.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay.
You'll pick through this. You can see that there's some of the noble's clothes. It looks like the stuff that the noble didn't take on the journey. And like the noble clearly didn't know the kind of gear that you should have adventuring. So there's like lots of silk shirts and things like that. And all of those kinds of things. And you're kind of picking around through there. So one thing that strikes you as an anomaly, kind of very much tucked away in side of a little container, you pull out and unroll this map.
Okay.
And kind of unroll it, and you can smell like lemon juice, like somebody had to do something to get the picture to come out, and you see this crude map of the pit. And some lines and marks and things like that.
I kind of look at it and then probably turn it the other way and then turn it back. And then I say, this is probably Happa's bet. Probably. And
so good.
Happa might want it in a few moments. And I kind of tuck it away.
So you'll tuck that away. And I think if you guys don't mind, we'll fiat bring you two parties back together. Is that okay?
Yep.
There's perhaps having to walk around the beer festival, the noise in the crowd. Some of these streets are super muddy, so you have to avoid those as well. It looks like there was a small shower of marbles as well from the magical storm, so they present a hazard in some places. But eventually, the four of you will meet up in another part of the what constitutes a town down here for you.
Oh, well met, friends. So, how did your investigations go?
It was great.
We did definitely find the place where they were selling the merchandise, thanks to Happa's examination of the books and my interrogation of the shopkeep. Here's a couple hobbits, Nalakars.
There you go.
have been making off with adventurers' gear.
Interesting.
And they're probably the ones who did Kajaran Inn.
I don't know if I found anything that would be as directly helpful as that. That's a great lead. But perhaps I found why they were rolled, or maybe it's just what they intended to get. And I pull the map scroll out from inside the folds of my robe and say, Papa, I think this might be more for you to look at. It's a little hard for me to make heads or tails of, other than, well, it must be the pit, but other than that, I don't know what it really indicates.
Harper rubs his hands together and is like, this is definitely my lucky day. You should have seen that shop. It was such a mess. I was in there. I ordered it all. Fixed up his books a little bit. I think I'm starting to get a feel for this guard's role.
The map, Papa.
Oh, the map. Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, this smells like that ancient technique for disguising text. Yeah, so it does smell like the old lemon juice on
Does
it. Yeah. Did you drop some of your lunch on it?
No. I just thought it smelled like hummus. I assumed they dropped some lunch on it, but if it's something else, indeed.
Yeah, these markings look like previously invisible ink. I do like to say, and you're right. This is definitely the pit. Let me get out my map of the city and try and see what quadrant we might be looking in, and see if we can get some further detail from a more reliable source. I don't trust these unauthored maps. I much prefer to get my maps from a well-known cartographer. This doesn't even have a signature on it.
Truly, it's a disreputable map by all means. Yes.
I'd like to try and find some sort of.
Sure, you're gonna be able to look at it and get some basic information. Make a mental pull, lore, to see if you can get some additional stuff.
Sorry, I can't get the top of my deck.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
If you need to make the cards bigger as well, you can also zoom. There's a little zoom bar on the 20 screen. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah, I'm pretty amazing.
This map has been very carefully made to look old. It is a very recent map that has been doctored and made to look like an ancient treasure map. And it's not the greatest job, but it's enough to fool someone. And it definitely, you can see there's a good part of the pit that is still just rubble that hasn't been like cleaned up and resettled or any part of it. And there's definitely a trail that leads out to somewhere in the pit. And there's a little symbol that looks like a little dungeon symbol out there. And you can get an idea on where that is and figure out it's probably about an hour's walk outside of town. Or outside of this settlement here.
Yeah. Friends, I'm not sure who produced this disgrace of a map. It is, I don't believe that it is of pure authenticity. I am suspicious of its origins, and I do think that the direction that Karajin and Linzit were going in was doomed from the start. Whether or not it was Karajin's ruse to make money off the kid, or I don't know.
I don't know. The pawnbroker did say that the Naliscars were running something outside town.
And I'd be willing to bet they've been buying a lot of lemons lately. Sell the fake map, bushwhack the intrepid adventurers on their way to the non-existent dungeon. Sell their gear, buy more lemons.
Buy more lemons.
Sounds
They
like
have
An interesting theory.
Edward, you're kind of listening to this, and you're hearing still the sounds of the beer festival off a couple blocks to the north, but then you start to hear, like a couple blocks to the south, there's some shouting that's starting to turn into some screams.
Uh-oh. Time to spring into action.
Okay. What do you do?
I'll turn to this whole, to my fellow officers and say, "Do you hear that? Follow me."
Yes,
And I'll take off in the direction of the shouting.
Are you more concerned with a cautious, careful pace, or are you more interested in getting there as fast as possible?
If it sounds like someone in distress, I want to get there as quickly as possible.
All right. So you will take off, run down, and sort of take this corner, and you're heading into what looks like some of the buildings kind of have, sometimes they surround like an interior courtyard, like an interior market courtyard. You're heading into one of those. I'm going to come back to you in just a second. What are the other three of you doing? He just takes off.
He said follow, so I kind of do but then shrugs. I guess we follow. And look to the others, but then chase after.
Does Delsarin run?
No. I walk fast.
Okay.
I mean, I do have long legs. But it's not so much that he doesn't want to exert himself. He's just old. The bones and the muscles just don't take the shock the same way anymore.
So doing the kind of
he gestures for Hapa and Argo to catch up as they can, and I'll be with you as soon as I'm able.
And Argo, are you a runner?
You know what? I think that I am constantly shocking people. It's less that I'm, running as much as I find like just the right spots to cut through a crowd. I'm just hustling along, and suddenly people realize like, oh, he covered more ground than I thought he would.
So we've got a couple of fast sprinters. We've got Delsarin moving, which brings us to Hapa.
Hapa's pretending he's pretending he's not. He didn't hear the command or the suggestion to move. He's just like, oh, I'm still looking at these maps. I'm sure I can get some more information from them, and doesn't really want to go towards the screens.
That is fair enough. Hapa can walk carefully, slowly, still looking at the map, not getting involved with it. And it's probably a good idea because Edward, you'll come out into this like market courtyard, and you can see that there are stalls knocked over, cantaloupes thrown every which way, braziers, that kind of stuff. People are running past you, and you can see that in the courtyard are two giant spiders. That's the first thing you see. There's something else that kind of out of the corner of your eye darts underneath one of the stalls, and there's this monkey that is crackling with electricity, that is jumping from stall to stall, and these monsters are like have set into the crowd. What do you do?
What a disaster. Also, what an opportunity.
Okay.
I will draw my saber.
Okay.
And I will yell for the civilians to make way and get behind me, and I will. So 2 giant spiders, a glimpse I caught out of the corner of my eye, and an electric monkey.
Yes, a lightning spider monkey.
A lightning spider monkey.
Yes.
My instincts tell me that the lightning spider monkey is probably much more dangerous than it would seem to be as compared to the giant spiders. But the giant spiders are probably far more terrifying to the civilians. So I will immediately, I'll immediately try to bring them to heel.
Okay.
Unless there's someone around who acts as if he owns them or something like that, I'm going to draw my saber and advance quickly and try to. You
don't see anybody calling out, but you could stop and try to.
Try to catch briefly, just sort of get a sense for what maybe has happened here. Like, did they just come up from the rubble underneath, or they escaped from a menagerie, or does there not seem to be any? If there's no evidence of what's actually happening, I'm afraid I'll just have to kill them.
Okay, that is a perfect question. I'm going to because it's a new scene, new action scene. I've reshuffled everyone's decks. That happens from time to time. So you kind of step off to the side to you've got this chaos around you. People are running. They've got these monsters going, but you stop to ascertain what's happening here. And you will see that just around one of these slight corners, there is a house of exotic beasts and rare ingredients. And it looks like it's a fairly large building, and some sort of window or door has been left open, and these things have poured out.
Okay.
Okay.
So there could be more of them.
Could be. So Argo, you're the next fastest coming here. You'll hit that corner, come around. You'll see that Edward has kind of stepped to the side, hasn't engaged them, and you'll see those monsters.
Oh my goodness! Are the people just like running in panic, or is it like a crush to see what's happening and just like the stall owners kind of panicking?
The giant spiders are probably about 5-6 feet across.
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
So any desire to go, has been lost at that moment. And they are trying to get out of here, and they're falling, and they're trying to grab their goods. They're screaming.
Okay. The spiders seem like the more immediate threat, or is it just that people seem to be reacting more to that than to stalls being set on fire by electric monkey shines?
Yeah, no, the spiders are moving towards where they're hearing all the sounds and stuff, but they haven't attacked anyone.
Okay. I'll look to I cast a quick look over my shoulder to see whether how far along Delsarin is, and then
at the end of the alley that you came down to get here, you probably see Delsarin just take that turn.
Okay. And I'll just say, I'll call out to him. There's some weirdness that seems of a particularly mystical nature, my friend. Perhaps you can hurry. And then I'll look at Edward and say, I think that those spiders need to be dealt with. But I also don't seem like I'm particularly stepping forward. I seem like I have sort of a look of terror as I look at these cart horse sized spiders, and kind of like I'm patting myself down a little bit.
So people are pushing past you. You two have kind of set yourselves to kind of plan and observe. Delsarin is coming. You haven't attacked or engaged these things. You will now see out from under one of those stalls, hop up onto this thing where there's all these various like steel braziers and things. You see this sort of orange-colored animal short, squat legs. It has a couple of antennae, and you see it starts licking the steel braziers and things, and they rust over immediately. Delsarin, your comrades are kind of holding off, waiting for you. You can make your way up to there, and you will see this scene. People are running past you, panicked.
Lightning spider monkey. How big is the monkey?
The monkey is your standard spider monkey
Small.
size.
Okay.
It is, however, electrified, which changes its
Right.
profile.
I'm sorry.
Like-
Can I ask one quick thing?
Yes.
Are the people who are panicking? Is there like a riot? People getting hurt, trampled yet? I mean, like that might have spurred me into action, but otherwise,
No, there wasn't enough people here to cause a riot. There are a few people on the far side who are freaking out because they don't want to go past all these things.
okay. But there's not like the crowd crushing itself in panic. Okay.
No,
Just making
not enough to do that. You're mercifully relieved of that. Delsarin.
I show up. I look at these creatures. Now, I might actually be familiar with this store.
Okay.
From my background as an elvish wizard.
Oh, I like that. Let's have you make a social poll with contacts to see if that is the case.
Well, I can make a social poll. I don't know about contacts.
Okay. So you weren't casting magic, so
wasn't
that's
using
good.
magic. So I don't recognize the source of these.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I haven't come down this way. I don't recognize the store.
But I can. Do I spend a fate to tag an aspect?
Yeah.
Let me do that for the Elder Elven Wizard.
Okay, and you can repull.
Oh, even better.
Burn through this
Play the
card.
draw. So take the next one. And mental.
Now social.
Oh, social.
Social is amazing. Yes, you know the owner of this store. You know him quite well. His name is Red Histina. He's a slotty, a big sort of amorphous frog fellow. He keeps most of his records in pretty good order, enough that you haven't questioned him. But he doesn't. He does deal in exotic animals, but some of these look like maybe a little more dangerous than he's supposed to be having. Like, you shouldn't have a rust monster in town.
Right. Like, well, boys, looks like we have a bit of a situation here. Let's do what we can to beat these back to the shop and see if the owner will come out and bring them to heel.
wait, back to the shop. What's this? And I'll
That
presume.
building over there. The one with the door ajar.
And
Undoubtedly, they came from that location, unless someone was dropping off something and failed mightily.
Let me quickly cut back and check on our Hoppa and see what Hoppa is doing, and then I want to have you three declare your actions. Hoppa.
Harper's come around the corner of the alleyway. He's seen his companions kind of readjust, assessing the situation. He digs into his satchel and pulls out his field guide to the wildlife of the Pit and Pinnacle. So he wants to flip through and classify what kind of creatures they're looking at and see if there's something within his grasp that he could use to protect him and the others. Himself, firstly.
Have you make a lore pull for me with so lore mental pull.
Okay.
You good with okay?
Yeah, I wanna smash it. Let's go. Catastrophic!
And your final repull?
Yeah, I don't want to be catastrophic just now. This could be messy. Ooh, what's this one? Yes! Okay. Preparation.
And you've already described what you have. You described that you have this book, and you'll kind of flip through it, and you'll see that kind of check lightning spider monkeys, very fond of fruit, easily lured that way. That's probably why it's bouncing around what it's looking for. You look at the spiders. They look like they're old. You guys see they have like the graying hairs on their legs. So while they look kind of horrible and dangerous, and like they're from Australia, they're in fact not all that dangerous, and can probably be dealt with pretty easily. The rust monster is a different story. You do not want to touch it if you have any metal on you.
Okay, I'll go. I'm sure you've got some snacks in your pocket. The electric spider monkey will be fine. You just got to share your snacks. I know you don't like sharing. Just he'll look at that. And Desarin, the spiders are actually closer to your age than you would probably like to admit. I'm sure you could coax them gently. Edward, I'm looking at you for that rust monster. I'm staying back at this.
So I'm looking at Argo for that rust monster. He's the one who's always wading in with his fist balled up.
So, Edward, I'm going to start with you because you were sort of the first one on the scene. You're the first one to get here. You've gotten some information. You've assayed the scene. What do you want to do?
So I do want to. So the spiders aren't acting particularly aggressive?
You haven't gone to attack them. So they're just kind of like wandering right now. You've been non-aggressive, so you will realize that they have not attacked anybody, and they're just kind of trying to figure out what's going on here.
I'm going to try to frighten them. I'm gonna get them between me and the shop, and I'm going to, basically, they're not. I mean, if they were people, this would be easier, but they're dumb beasts. So I've got my sword in my hand. I'm going to get them between me and the shop. I'm going to advance on them. Make a lot of noise. If they act particularly aggressive towards me, I'll attack. Other than that, though, I'm just going to try to shoo them towards the store if I possibly can.
Okay. I think this is going to be more of a physical activity than combat, right? So
yeah.
That seemed fair. So
sure.
Let's have you pull with physical, and you can reuse athletics or fight as the repulls on this.
Okay. Well, they're both 2, so either one. So my first physical is a great, so I'm pretty happy with the great.
I will say with the great, you can push both of them back slightly, or you can get one sort of completely in control and back towards that window.
That's what I'll do. I'll get one of them completely, cowed and push it back towards the window.
Kind of do that stomp. You're kind of waving it. It backs up when the sharp thing comes near it, and it's hearing all this noise. It doesn't like being out here. It was just curious, and it starts to go back. It's a big bulk, kind of almost doesn't fit in this window, but it will start sliding itself through. Argo.
I think that I am a little stricken, but seeing that these spiders are moving away, I suddenly am able to shake myself back into motion. And, I cast about, realize that She mentioned the monkey, but I actually have an idea for the rust creature. Figure somebody here has some sort of like wrought iron fineries, things that they're trying for sale, and he's probably wrapping up, throwing them onto a wagon best as he can to get out. I'm going to simply grab a couple things, you know, and probably he, you know, doesn't see me until I've already grabbed them and says, "Hey, wait a second!" But I've already kind of stepped away, and I start waving them enticingly before the rust monster, and basically I'll even like reach out and sort of like tap it if it, you know, will make it, and then if it I'm assuming that it wants it as opposed to just makes them fall apart, but I might be correct depending on what happens.
I think this is also a physical pull.
Okay.
And I think athletics is the appropriate one for you on this, is you kind of go up and you're essentially waving these iron lollipops in the face of the rust monster there.
Okie doke. Physical is great.
Okay. And what do you want to have happen here?
They're telling me toward the store. I'm presuming that they're correct, although even as I'm doing it, I'm kind of looking around. Is there a proprietor that seems anxious, or somebody else that seems, you know, upset about the fact that things are out and loose?
I haven't seen a proprietor.
Okay. I mean, first thing, let's get it off the street, but then maybe I'll...
Okay. Well, let me cut from you to Delsarin. Delsarin, it looks like the most dangerous one, the rust monster, Argo is handling. Edward has got one of these spiders moved back in. What do you want to do?
He, cracks his, neck and his, fingers a little bit, and starts chanting and gesturing, and he's going to cast a spell on the spider monkey.
Okay.
He wants to plant the thought that all of the best fruit has been taken inside the shop. Nice. Maybe a couple visions of, Ristina, who, hopefully he's seen, and, carrying, a bag overflowing with, fruit, behind the counter.
Perfect. Let's have you make that mental pull there.
So where do I mark off the stress? The B or the C track?
C is current, so okay. Off of that.
The mental pull. I don't feel good with just okay.
I know. The monkey's gonna hesitate.
So I will draw. Oh, I certainly do not feel okay with catastrophic.
And you got magic twice.
I do have magic twice. Third time's the charm. Uh-oh.
Oh, nice.
Okay. So tell me what that looks like. As you mind control a monkey.
Yeah, he's his arms are outstretched and he's just walking towards it, like almost pulling these invisible puppet strings, like this is just second nature to him. No, yeah. He's probably just wandering past one of the spiders, but
Yeah, you're elvish wizardry. That I assume the winds come up.
Yeah, and there's glowing lines between me and the monkey, showing obviously them doing mental magic, Yeah.
And the monkey is like, you can see visions of bananas and apricots dancing in its head, and it goes scurrying back towards the shop. Which brings us to you, Hoppa. There's one spider that's sort of kind of spinning and looking around, or which can be dealt with, or do you want to do something else?
I don't think he wants to interact with the spider. He's not worried about him. I think he's much prefer to go over to some disrupted stores and restock the shelves.
Okay.
tidy things up a little bit.
So you will be an ocean of calm. These people are all kind of freaked out. They're hiding, got their children behind them, and then these guards come in and start taking care of it, and then you very carefully.
Yeah, well, Harper knows what's dangerous and what's not. Like he doesn't really understand why everyone doesn't have that same knowledge that he has. So I think he's just going to like turn a blind eye to everyone going nuts and just go about his own business.
Perfect. Get that set up. It seems to me that you guys have these monsters under control, right? Can drive the spider back. You've kind of got a handle on it. The one is gone. This other one you can drive back. The monkey is dance puppet dance for Delsarin, and it will go on in. You can get these in there. You will see Delsarin as you kind of get these monsters in there. Red Hestina, that Slotty, kind of laid out on the floor of his basement
in a non-living pose.
No, he's actually breathing.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ensure that the monsters are put away.
Okay.
In cages. Hopefully the right ones.
Okay.
And then yell for Argo to get in here, that the owner has been hurt in some way. And I will bend over and see if I can take a look at him.
Okay. We'll kind of cut to you guys kind of putting the last of these things in their cages. I assume, Edward, this is not your favorite thing to do.
No.
Keep away from the rust monster, your beautiful
Definitely.
sword at a distance. And you will get Red Hestina set up, and Argo, medicine. He's relatively humanoid. You can treat him. He has just a big bump on his head, which of course you can wrap on him, and he'll pick up his little fez and put it up on his head at a jaunty angle. He has to kind of take it because now he's got that. And he goes, "Oh, well, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We were broken into last night."
Broken into, my good sir. You must be quite alarmed. Here, please, calm yourself. And I pull out like a small, almost like, Alp-style thing of liquor for him to calm his nerves with.
And you see, he kind of drinks that. He does give Hoppa the eye, the accountant character. See that maybe a little bit of slod sweat starts to form on his brow. And he'll say, I heard a noise down here last night. And when I came down, there were two horrible little hobbits.
Interesting. A man and a woman, perhaps?
I don't know. They all look the same to me. Short and pink. Like that.
Like babies, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And were they releasing the animals, or were they doing something else that resulted in them breaking free somehow?
I don't know. One of them hit me with a hobbit cudgel, so a stick. I don't know. And I'm no warrior. I'm merely a keeper of exotic animals. But I think they took some things.
Right. These animals are very exotic.
All right. Do you have a license to import rust monsters?
Well, I have some paperwork for that. Maybe not complete. I put the forms in to have it. It was merely a holding Dobrost monster for someone else.
Look at that paperwork for you.
Okay. Master accountant.
Yes.
When you look through those papers, you may note another animal that I was holding for someone that was going to be transferred.
Did you have the correct holding permits in place?
In process, you know how it is, bureaucraties.
Yes,
paperwork?
I do know how it is. You need to have the permits before you accept the animal for holding.
Go. Technicalities. Look, that's less important. That's what the hobbits took.
Now, what is this animal? Harper pulls out his field guide and which one?
The problem is that it's a blink dog, but it's pregnant.
Oh, I see.
And unless it gets back here soon, we might have a litter of blink puppies running around.
That does sound adorable, but also dangerous.
And also unlicensed.
Touche. And it is 10:30. That's where we're going to stop for tonight. All right, if that's okay. Does that seem like a reasonable place to cut off?
Yeah.
We will take back with this scene with the Red Histina, the Slotty, and the stolen blink puppy, and all of that next week. We'll do Morrises and Thorns at the end of next session. So we'll get to that, and we'll finish out this particular scenario. Any questions or anything you want to ask before we wrap?
No.
Okay.
I think so.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop the broadcast then.